Hey all, we're trying to get back here. Um, let me try something here. We'll be hopefully back up and running in just a second here. Hopefully this is going to work. I don't really know entirely what happened, but we had a bit of a crash, apparently. Hey, Woody.
Hey,
I've zero idea what in the world happened. I've never encountered that before. But
me neither.
um, anyway, we're back. We're back on streaming on all platforms. So where were we?
Yeah, I'm,
Talking about gear. You had just mentioned
yeah.
dark glass, and that's when you froze and
Oh, wow.
went.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
saw you. I saw you freeze, so I didn't know what happened. Okay. So yeah, I use dark glass pedal. I really like that sound. And then I have a Schecter bass. So
Hmm.
I have the Extreme Stiletto and their studio version as well. And the studio version has EMG pickups. The other one doesn't. Um, and I'll never buy another EMG based bass with EMG pickups. They're just way too hot, and I'll probably buy like a passive next time. So
Gotcha. So I always ask this. Really, it's devolved into more of a comedy question than anything else, and that is, how often do you change strings?
well, so that's an interesting question. So when you sent the questions, yeah, I was reading that, was going, oh, okay. So I used to be a big Ernie Ball fan,
Hmm.
and I would change them like every 60 days. Um, I play almost every night for hours. So like now though, I've moved to elixirs. So I was watching a review, and as you can see the size, I do 130s. These are pretty thick strains, 45s. These are round, warm and round, natural. They're nickel plated, but they put a coating on them. They call it nano web coating. And everybody that uses these loves them, and they last forever. So you know how like when you are playing, you kind of start getting like the stuff on the strings, like the oil on your hands will start showing up on the strings if you play it a lot. These not as fast. And there's been guys on YouTube that says they haven't changed it in like 6 months and they still have the same tone. And so Ernie balls are definitely not that way. They are not cheap though.
No.
These are $50 a package. So one day I bought two, so that was 100. And then I went to put them on one of my basses, and I could not get the intonation right with one of my basses.
Oh no.
And so, actually, it's the studio one, my more expensive bass. So I had to order another package, smaller strings for that bass. So I had to spend 150 bucks in like a couple days on strings. So, but every 6 months I'll probably change them. So
Gotcha. But yeah, I say that's devolved into a comedy question mostly because, like you were saying, bass strings in general are not cheap. You practically have to take out a second mortgage to restring your bass.
Yeah, it's like I asked Jason, I'm like, how often, like how much do you pay? He's like, oh, I pay like $12. I'm like, he's got like a 7 string, I pay like $12. I'm like, dude, you got it made.
Must be nice, huh?
I'm ready to go to Alabama and start like ordering my stuff from China or something just to have a discount. I don't know.
So, Woody, who are some of your personal musical influences?
Well, I always say that like I I don't ever think that I'm good enough. Like I don't want to say like this person influences me play a certain way. I think inspired is probably the word I would say. I think I don't like to play in the conventional way of just like dun 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 dun. Like
Right.
I kind of like to be all over the neck, and um, because number one, that gets me to really be disciplined to use all the strings. If you kind
Hmm.
of get used to just playing root, going back and forth on a scale, you will tend to favor a particular string, right?
Right.
So I would say Ryan Martini from Mudvayne, which I don't know if you're familiar with Mudvayne, but they're the late '90s metal
Hmm.
band, kind of during that whole new metal and everything else. Ryan Martini is he's one of the greatest bassists. I think his skill is unbelievable. Very, very nice guy. I've never met him, but I can just tell he's a pretty nice guy. And then also probably Cliff Burton. I think the first time I ever watched Cliff Burton play, I watched him on a video. The way he would play, it's more almost like a guitarist would play. Um,
Hmm.
and so I try to. Our songs I can't really do that in, but when I'm practicing, I'll try to play a little bit like him. I just I want to get better to where I'm playing not like the usual bassist plays, kind of just all over all over the place, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
So
Right.
so I work on my finger speed, and I work I think I've had people comment that I pluck pretty fast. So I actually try to go faster and faster and faster. So like I'm looking at ways like I think it was Getty that uh was it from Rush who would play with one finger just really, really fast. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, working on that.
Gotcha. So, what was the very first concert you attended as a fan?
That's not a very impressive question. So I have to back up. So I have to say this. I have to preface this by saying that growing up in my family, my parents were so strict that like concerts weren't really a thing that they would allow me to go to.
Right.
I'm talking like really strict, like fundamentalist Christian strict. I don't think that's bad. I think it can be, but basically my first one was like Petra. That was probably the only thing I could go to that I would be allowed. Like if
Hmm.
I were to tell my parents, hey, I want to go to a Metallica concert, or I wanted to go because I was into Metallica, Pantera, Anthrax. I mean, I was a football player, so before we would start playing football, before we start the game, I was getting all crazy in the head, and so we'd listen to everything like that. But I could never go to a concert that was like that. So like Petra. So I'm pretty boring when it comes to that.
Was it the Greg X Voles Petra or was it the John Schlitt Petra?
I don't know, whatever was big in the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, that's right about when they changed singers. So,
Yeah,
um,
I don't listen to Petra anymore, so I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Um, so, over the course of your musical career, have you had the opportunity to meet any of your musical heroes?
No, I haven't. Um, I would, like I said, like late '90s. I was living here. I was living in Indiana at the time, and like I don't even remember ever like Mudvayne coming to Indianapolis. I mean, I'm sure they did, but I just no, I never did. I didn't really start going to that many concerts until I guess in my younger 20s. I guess I did here and there, but it's hard to find people I think that like the same music as you do that will go to a concert. Like
Right.
my wife a couple of years ago surprised me for my birthday. She says, "Hey, you want to go to a concert?" And I'm like, "What? Which one?" And she's like, "Let's go see Corn." And I'm like, now you got to bear in mind, my wife is a country music fan. She does not like Corn, right? We're talking like Luke Bryan, Rascal Flatts. I'm even done some covers of country. I like some country music.
Yeah.
My band members will all make fun of me, but I like some country music. But she totally surprised me. I'm a big Stained fan. I'm a big Stained groupie. So, I like, so we went and saw them. So, yeah, yep.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. So, Woody, away from music, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
Um, well, so, probably the only really other thing that I am really into is I'm a big weather bug. So, I chase storms. I'm a storm chaser, and
Oh, that's
uh,
cool.
yeah, depending on who you ask. I think most people want to run away from tornadoes. I want to run towards them. So, unfortunately, I haven't seen any yet. This year is not turning out to be. So I went last year. I did a little bit in my 20s, and then I moved to California for 15 years, and they don't get tornadoes out there.
No.
They actually, I think we had one in the 15 years I was out there. It was a water spout. It didn't
Oh,
last very long,
yeah. I was
but no, they don't have the storms like Nebraska and this big mothership coming
Kansas
in.
and
Yeah, yeah,
Oklahoma. Yeah.
yeah, even Illinois. Um, so last year we went quite a few times and just couldn't get the tornadoes to drop where we were at. And but I'm really into meteorology, predicting. I analyze the charts, I analyze models, figure out where I'm gonna get set up. This year has been kind of slow for the Midwest. I mean, Oklahoma has been getting hit hard this year. Big year for the Great Plains, but even Illinois right now. Usually Illinois gets double that Indiana does. I mean, I go chasing in Illinois, and they're not getting much action either. So
Hmm.
some years it is, some years it isn't.
Yeah. That's interesting, though.
Yeah,
That's,
I think that's probably really the only hobby I have outside of playing music. So
hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been uh, here and there. I've watched some of Reed Timmer's streams, and
Oh boy.
he's a bit of a maniac. But
Reed hasn't changed. He's probably just slightly younger than I am, but that guy, man, I don't know. Yeah, it's only like him and maybe three other guys that do it full time. So
yeah.
he's sponsored and everything. I mean,
Right.
you don't make money storm chasing unless you can get. Even then, you won't. But you get a guy like Hank Hank Scott Hank Shima, I think is how you pronounce his name. But on YouTube, his name is Picos Hank. Um, he's really good videographer. Matter of fact, in the movie Supercell, which came out 2 years ago, it starred Alec Baldwin.
Hmm.
They in the part of the movie where they're in the van or whatever, and they're driving in reverse, and you see the tornado in front of them. That's actual footage from Hank. So he sold that to or licensed it to the movie to uh, the the filmmakers, and that's actual footage. It's not CGI.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
So, we're going to get now into the section where we actually talk more about the band. And what I'm going to do is, before we start talking about the band, I'm going to share my screen and play the first couple of minutes of the music video for y'all's song "Absolution," which I just completely dig.
awesome.
So. That is just fantastic. Your singer has an amazing voice.
I was gonna say that I wouldn't mind picking some things out on that as we talk about the bass and her and everything. When I was talking earlier about how when you asked me when I started playing bass,
Mhm.
and I like it was 2 years into playing, and I'm like, I want to start a band. And I think some people would say like to themselves, like, am I good enough to start a band? I wasn't good enough to start a band. But what I always tell people is if you want to become proficient in an instrument, play with people better than you,
Yep.
period. And when I put the post out on Craigslist, Mark, our drummer, he answered it and we got together. And I knew instantly, I'm like, this guy is much better than I am. He's going to think I'm a scrub. And, and he was like, I was actually surprised for him to say, yeah, let's start a band. I was like, okay, um, and he probably, I've played with a few drummers, at church and him and I think he's kind of tough to play in sync with on the kick. Um, I don't know if it's just because I am not any good, but I think he does a lot of like he'll do polyrhythms, he'll do all kinds of different things, and like sometimes I can't anticipate like on Absolution, he will double kick, and then he'll dun 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 double kick, double kick. Like it's hard to get that wrapped around with your fingers, like because you want to stay in sync with him. And it's nothing against him. That's how he plays. And so I think when you hear that, it's like it always makes me try to work harder to get more in sync with him on the kick, because that's important as a bassist, right?
Right.
Um, you can, as a bassist, though, you can do things to kind of stay with the kick sometimes and do other things. Like I try to also, when Jason's getting chunky on the guitar, I will then switch over to that so that it's not like Woody's totally out doing his own thing. He's not aligned with Mark. He's not aligned with the guitar. Um, and so I can get away with it easier.
Right.
But and then Olivia, I mean, like you just said, I mean, she's amazing. Her voice, it's just amazing. Like it's effortless for her. And and I would say the vocalists we've had, like Natalie and Luke, before Olivia came along. Natalie had a great voice. If you listen to How Do You Know, if you listen to More Than What You Are, that was Natalie. I always called her the Pat Benatar. She had the look and everything, and then we also had Luke, who did a lot of the growling and the screaming. Like when you listen to Shatter the Doubt, that's him the whole time, which is a great song, I think. But yeah, and then the cello, right? I mean,
Hmm.
Olivia, I think she's got like a master's degree in cello or something. I mean, she's just, yeah. And then of course Jason, and he's been playing his whole life. So and it's funny because like you talk to people like, are you you look at someone like Joe Satriani, who's very obviously extremely technical. Like he
Hmm.
probably knows every scale. And you talk to Jason and be like, what did you just play right there when you just kind of went over? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, like, is that C then E then F sharp then it just so like you get players who just they've been playing so long they just know what sounds good. And like
Right.
I can't read music. I can obviously if I have the chords I can play and stuff and then I'll do things around the chords. But he's the kind of guy that I could put a song he's never played before in front of him. He'll play it, he'll have it down in 15 minutes. Like he's just that guy where it takes me like 3 weeks. I got to run through a chord program to find the chords and everything else. So he's got a really good ear. So if you are a bassist and you have a really good foundation in terms of your band, you're really going to progress pretty fast, I think, as long as you're practicing stuff. Um,
Right.
so yeah.
So you've sort of answered some of the questions I had already. Like it sounds like you guys have been together. It sounds like about 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, I guess it's been almost 8 years, I guess.
And I mean, I know, I guess in general terms, where the name came from, but, how did you settle on the name Divine Martyr?
Well, so before Mark started, it was like this guy, Dan Klingler is his name. He's moved now. He's off in another state, but it was him and I, really, the very, very, very beginning. And I came up with a couple names, and then he had a list of like 5 names. And he's like, if I was going to start a Christian band, these are the names I would pick. And the first one on top was Divine Martyr. And I just thought it was catchy to me.
Hmm.
It also was illustrative of the Christian faith, where the early church, pretty much almost all the saints of the early church were martyrs.
Right.
We know Saint Peter was crucified upside down by Nero, the emperor, and that went on for years. And I think that we have people in other countries who are Christians who will say, "No, I'm not going to denounce my faith," and they're dying because of it. And we know that to be true because not only is it prophesied in the Bible that it will happen, and it's been happening for 2,000 years, but it will happen in the future as well. And so I think that we are called to do that. And it's not just necessarily dying from a physical perspective. I think you have to die to oneself. I think you have
Exactly.
to, I think to be a Christian, especially in these days, you can't be lukewarm. We
No.
have no time right now, the state of affairs that we are in, to not know
Oh,
your faith.
exactly.
So if you're lukewarm, or if you're struggling with like studying your Bible or watching faith-based programming, and if you're struggling with the simple things that we all struggle with, like prayer. I mean, you and I were talking before we started recording about how you had a long week. I mean, if you're like me, it's hard just to read the Bible, unless you're
Oh, yeah.
disciplined. There is no time not to be disciplined, because it's getting worse and worse in society. And
Absolutely agree. This is not the world you and I grew up in.
no,
And that world is not coming back. I mean,
nope.
yeah, we are in some dark times, brother.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me a bit about the songwriting process within Divine Martyr. Is there a primary writer in the band, or is it a collaborative thing? And how does your collective faith enter into the songwriting?
You know, I'm kind of a lazy bassist. Well, I can't write lyrics to save my life. The band would have failed already if it was on me. It's interesting because not only is Mark a great drummer, he also plays keys. I mean, he
Hmm.
teaches. He teaches. He's just an all-around great musician. It's his life, and he puts down the melodies, puts down all the orchestration. So basically, we had a band meeting the other day. We have like 5 albums worth of material. We have like 4 albums in pre-production.
Oh, that's great.
And so he comes up with ideas. He'll be working on it one night. He'll say, "What do you think of this?" I'll be like, "Wow, that's awesome." And so he writes the main melody. Olivia comes in and puts down the lyrics, and she's a great lyricist. Like, she knows what sounds. I mean, like, for example, I think that the words that she wrote for Absolution just flowed great. Natalie was a great writer too. I mean, when you listen to How Do You Know, she actually, I don't think she would, if she listens to this, I don't think that she would have a problem me saying it, but she wrote that for her father who passed away. It was kind of her personal message to him, and his struggles with faith, and just where he was at in his faith. Um, and so, yeah, Olivia writes that. Jason has wrote probably 2 or 3. One that we've already recorded. Well, one that him and Mark have recorded, but Olivia and I still have to do it. So, but yeah, it's primarily Mark and our vocalists that have always written lyrics and stuff.
Nice, nice. Um, So, is Divine Martyr anything approaching a full-time thing at this point? And, if not, tell us a bit about your day job.
No, Divine Monner is not at all. um, and I could get onto a lengthy diatribe on that, man. I mean, but I won't. I will say that I don't know if it'd be any easier if we were a secular band. I mean, there's pros and cons. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember when there was music stores in the mall.
Yeah,
And like my son, he just turned 17. He has no clue. Like he saw a picture of an old school one, right? And he was like, "What? They sold?" Yeah, I think man, it's tough. Like back then, you had to be big enough to get on a label, so there was your barrier right there. All
right.
right. Now you don't need to be on a label, but it's extremely hard to get enough views on YouTube. You have to put in. I mean, I'm sure you know this. You're trying to create a brand. Like you have to know the algorithm. We have to know the algorithm.
Mhm.
Mark's a stats nerd. Like he knows like how YouTube works. He knows how Facebook works. When we post something, we look at the percentages of when people see your post at what time, the highest. So we'll put at that time. Most of the time we do that. So it's hard to get enough views.
It
Uh,
is.
so yeah, none of us. We all have careers. I work. So this is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm a cybersecurity engineer. So I've been doing that for 23, 24 years. So when I said I was technical and I could kind of understand when you were talking about code and stuff. So I used to write in C sharp, a little bit of Python. And I know if you miss a semicolon at the end
Oh yeah.
or a comma, you might as well forget the whole thing's going to just puke. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I've been doing cybersecurity for a long time. That landscape has really changed in the last 20 years. It's got a higher barrier to entry now, I think, than it did. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, my son, he'll be starting his sophomore year in high school coming up. That's actually potentially a career path he's interested in is cybersecurity. So,
have him give
um,
me a call, man,
yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
I was gonna say I might put you in touch and let you talk to him. I mean, he'd love to talk to somebody in the field and just get more of a taste for it. So yeah, if you're willing, we can set that up.
I would have no problem doing that. I like to, if I have a chance to mentor somebody, I will. I think it was easier when I started because like we just like I broke the law. Like I had to break the law to learn.
Right.
Maybe it wasn't easier, but I think in some ways it was. Like back when I started in the mid 90s, late 90s, we would hack someone's website. We would break into a server in China or in Japan or whatever. Is statute of limitations over? It's 26 years maybe. Okay, so we would. Well, there's no proof anyway.
Yeah.
I was good at hiding my tracks. So and we would just break into websites just for fun. Like back then it was like what the it was just cool. Like you were a hacker and everything. When 9/11 hit, literally overnight, when Bush passed the Patriot Act, if you had unauthorized entry into a computer, you could be tried as a domestic terrorist.
Yep.
And that changed everything.
Hmm.
You had websites that showed all the hacked sites. We had antionline.com. We had all these websites. And then everything now it's everyone coming from state actors. And of course e-commerce has just took it up to a next level, which we didn't have e-commerce back before the internet boom.
Right. Right.
So
Interesting.
and college
Interesting.
now. So like your son can go to college to get a degree in information security where I didn't have that available to me.
Right.
So
Right.
I went to HKU, Hard Knocks University, and just like
Yeah.
learned on my own, man. I read white papers at night. I was the most boring person on the planet, and that's how I learned. So
Very cool. Very cool. So, If you can narrow it down to one or two little anecdotes, what have been some of the most interesting experiences that you've had playing live?
Well, have you played live before?
I've played live, like at a for church, and uh, played guitar at a couple of. I went to a Christian college, and I played guitar at some events there and that kind of thing. You know,
Okay.
so
So you seem like a man of faith. So
yes,
I will tell you this. So we're going to have a show. It's called the Broken Bottle Festival. I can't remember when it is. I think it's in August or September. But we did it last year with about 8 other bands. And we went on. We were going on. I can't remember what time, but there was a few bands before us. And one of the bands, they're getting ready to. They have to be on in like 2 hours. And of course, you load in like way early. You set up your merchandise table and all that stuff. You meet people when they come in. You want to, fraternize with the other bands and stuff because you're all there to support each other. And the guy comes up to us. We know him, and he's like, "Man, the rest of my band members just broke down. Like their U-Haul just totally broke down. Like they don't know if they are gonna be able to get here or whatever." So he didn't have very long. They had to get on. They finally was able to fix their van or whatever U-Haul and got there on time. Then something else happened. It was really strange. I think Olivia, I believe, was going to do vocals. She was going to be another vocalist in another band, and they had practiced, but then the music like got corrupted or something. And then after that, we come up on stage. We do go to play our set, and Mark plays with for the tracks, since we don't have a keyboardist, we don't have, we have tracks for the kind of symphonic, the orchestration side of things.
right.
So he has just an old school iPod, like, think late 90s, the little one,
Oh
and
yeah.
it has nothing on it, like it doesn't update or whatever. Always works because one time we were at a show and his laptop decided to update during the show and it killed the tracks, and it was just like, and that happened one time, and he got an iPod. So he's
Hmm.
got this thing, right? And all of a sudden, we're probably have our next to last song, and it dies. Like it just all of a sudden wouldn't work. Never had that happen before. And I'm like, okay, like I'm a believer in the demonic, and I'm a believer in evil, and we're getting targeted here. Like we're in battle, and all these people are coming to play. And so, Jason, I mean, when you're trying, when you're on stage, like professionals will just, they know what to do. Like Jason just starts playing kind of a little tune while Mark is trying to get this figured out, right? He's like, it's not working. And all of a sudden, the band, everyone out there goes like, yeah, you don't need tracks. You don't need tracks. And we always said as a band, this is the worst case scenario. When your electronics die, either your wireless die, like when you have wireless on your guitar, like you always have your cable kind of sitting there as a backup, right? So that if the wireless goes out on your bass, you can just hurry up and plug it in. Or the second worst thing is in ears, but we don't use in ears a whole lot. Um, so they're like, yeah, and I'm like, I look back at Mark and I'm like, let's do Forever, because Forever is 4 chords. It's a cover of Carrie Joby's song. It's 4 chords. And so we were just like, and he doesn't have a kick, or he doesn't have a metronome. He doesn't have a click.
Hmm. Right.
Well, as a drummer, if you have no click, you're like in a canoe with no paddle. Like, so I said, let's just do it. And or we played our next song, and then they go, we've never had this happen before. They go encore, encore. And we always joke, like we always said that, like, okay, we're going to have a song for an encore, but we all kind of knew in the back of our head, we're probably not good enough. We're probably not popular enough to have an encore yet. So, so, but we always have one ready. And thank God that like we kind of did. And I just looked back at Mark. I'm like, you just want to do it without the click? And he's like, yeah. And he just like kind of let us in, and we played, and everybody was just raising their hands, praising God. It was like, it was probably the best show that we've had in like years. And it's kind of like Satan will try his best, but God always uses evil to end up making things work in his favor.
Right, right. Well, what you were saying about the devil trying to interfere with stuff. Interestingly enough, a few weeks ago, I had another expressly Christian artist on one of these, and I had technical problems that night. Yeah, I feel
We did
like,
tonight.
yeah, exactly. I feel like, the times that I've actually had faith-based artists on here, the devil doesn't like it, and it's interesting, and
Mhm.
I'm glad that we were able to persevere and get through it and continue on with this because Woody, this is a great conversation. I'm really having fun with this.
I feel like I'm talking too much. You gotta watch out. Like I can ramble forever. So
No,
just
no,
tell me to
no.
shut up.
This is great. This is great. So before you guys go on, do you have any pre-show traditions that you consistently try to do before you go on?
Yes, we pray. That's
That's
it.
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
all you have to do. And like always, every time. And I think that accomplishes a couple things. Number one, I think that it's a witness to people. Although we don't do it like in front of everybody, so everyone can see. Oh, look,
Right.
praying. But you know that like you're back behind a curtain or you're behind whatever, and you're praying. And if somebody happens to walk by and they see that, it's important as a Christian band to live out your faith.
Hmm.
We could come to a show and not say anything and act like we're a bunch of prima donnas. There are people who do that. In my opinion, there are some Christian bands that I think kind of act like that. Um, but but we are always try to live out our faith even when we're stressed, even when we're hurrying. If a fan comes up and they want our, I've surprisingly I've done an autograph before. Like, as a DIY band, if we have 30,000 followers, it's not like we have millions of people. To have someone come up and want an autograph is like, whoa. I mean, it's only happened like once or twice, but when they buy merchandise, we sign everything. They want pictures. You're tired after a show. You're
Oh yeah.
sweaty. You look like a warthog. Like you don't even want to hug Olivia because she's a lady and she's not going to want to hug a. And God forbid, I'm a bassist, so I just by nature I'm supposed to stink. I'm supposed to be sweaty. And then like Mark's probably watching this, and he's supposed to be stinky and sweaty. And so like and fans come around, they want to take a picture and they're like, I don't care, so and so you have to live your faith and be nice and show people that you love them and pray. Just do everything you would normally do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what is your actual hometown? I mean, I know you're in Indianapolis right now, but is Indiana your home or Maine?
Yeah, so I grew up in a little town, Newport, Indiana. It's north of Terre Haute, which is Indiana State University. It's
Okay.
pretty much what it's known for. It's also, everyone calls it locally the armpit of the world because they had a paper mill at one point, and the west side was like you could smell. We always said
Oh yeah.
that's money you smell, and in Newport, which is about 35 miles north, that's up Highway 63. I they My dad worked as a blue collar worker his whole life, so he worked 3 miles away from a paper mill, and if the wind was just right, we could even smell. And Newport is interesting because it's only 400 people, but once a year it has the Antique Auto Hill Climb. That's its claim to fame. They've been doing it since like the late 1800s, early 1900s. They take these old Model T cars, and we have a huge hill right there, very steep, and they do time trials up it. And every October they get about 10,000 people into that little town of 400. And I grew up like they have like food vendors and flea markets and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just a small town. You can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy. So
Exactly. Exactly. So I guess now you said you're outside of Indianapolis. What is your favorite thing about the Indianapolis area?
You shouldn't have asked that, because what I tell you about talking about Indy versus Atlanta and the metal
Well,
scene.
yeah.
Okay, how should I say this? I think if you talk to any band member, probably even other bands, being a metal artist in Indianapolis is very hard. It, we always like to joke and say it's a place for country and covers. So
Right.
if you want to play a cover band, you're going to make money, right?
Yeah.
And especially getting into symphonic metal. I mean, there's a reason why bands like Nightwish, Camelot, uh, and then like regular heavy metal bands like Battle Beast, why they play in Chicago.
Hmm.
Big scene up there. So that's, the things I like about Indy. Well, the cost of living's a little bit lower, but I don't know if that's kind of changing. Um, the people are they're pretty friendly and down to earth. And then traffic, like, I mean, I know what traffic is living in the Bay Area in San Francisco for years, which is one of the reasons why I moved back. So, people here are like, "Oh, traffic is horrible." I'm like, "You don't know traffic."
Yeah.
My daughter lives on Pendleton. Her husband's a Marine, and trust me, go to Southern California at 2 a.m. It's worse traffic than Indianapolis during prime time. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
So we're getting now to what has become one of my favorite questions, and I've asked this on every single one of these, and I just love this question, and that is, Woody, knowing everything that you know now, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what
Oh
would it
Lord.
be?
I told you you're gonna make me ramble. What would be the biggest piece of advice? Don't go into debt, which is easier said than done.
Right.
The Bible even talks about not being a slave to debt. And so a lot of Christians don't realize that when because maybe there's psychological issues that they may have that cause them to over and like to overspend, which happens. They don't realize that it's actually the Bible literally talks against doing that. People don't oftentimes equate that as a sin. I wouldn't call it a sin. I would think that like if you were spending so much that your kids are not eating, that's a sin. That would get into gluttony. So
Right.
I think it's very important because when you start early and get into debt, credit card companies target colleges. There's a reason why they do. It's like
Yep.
smoke. It's like smoking back in the '60s. They targeted, the ads were everywhere. They targeted colleges because they knew they'd have a lifelong customer. Um, I think the second thing would be, I mean, I would be amiss if I didn't say that you got to be rooted in your faith. I think you have to. I think since the last 60 years, we've been on a major decline, uh, where the Satan and the demonic are not even hiding anymore. It's just
Right.
they're just out there because they know their
The mask
time.
is off.
They know their time is short.
Yep.
Not to make this into like the Exorcist files or anything, but I study some theology. I study angelology, and I listen to a lot of talks from theologians who are exorcists. And you'll find one time Father Chad Ripperger had said that when he was in a session, he actually came face to face with the devil himself. I think it was actually under the devil. The devil used Beelzebub, or a couple other names. And he said, and so when they're saying the prayers, the demonic just get beat up, like God just beats them up. And he's like, why? Like, he asked a question like, why are you so like, what's causing you to do whatever? I can't remember, but he said because he's about to take my power away. So what does that tell you? God dictates how long the possession is going to last, who they can possess. God dictates everything. because off the ministry of exorcism is actually there to free that person, get them closer to God. So oftentimes God will allow that to happen in order for them to be closer to God in the long run. Some of the most holiest people you'll know have actually been possessed. So, but he said, because my time is nearing an end. So what does that tell you about where we're at in the last days? And when you take that and you look around at society and how it's just in the open now, they don't even care. They don't want to hide. You know, you've got people who have their sacrament is abortion now these days. And I don't mind sitting here talking about it in public forum. I don't care. You know,
Yeah,
that's the sacrament these days is abortion, transgenderism, and homosexuality, and it's just out there. And I think that we as Christians have to stand up and say, no, that's not right. So yeah,
absolutely
I told you
agree.
don't make me get on the soapbox.
No, and you know, I completely agree, man. The mask has come off.
Yeah,
And like you said, they're at the point where they don't care.
yeah.
You know?
I told you I'm transparent, man.
Yeah,
I say it, but at the same time, I think that it goes a little deeper, right? Like when you want to talk about homosexuality, the feeling, the temptation that you have to live that lifestyle, that's not a sin. The sin is actually not maintaining a chaste lifestyle if you struggle with that. So if you are still then having sexual relations, then that is very much gravely sinful. Um,
right,
but if you have that psychological dependency to have those feelings, you are called. You unite your struggle with Christ. Just like if you have a gambling problem, you unite your struggle with Christ. The more you pray about it and everything, you fight hard to not do those things and stay out of sin. But our society wants the easy way out. They want to
right.
say, well, it's not me. This is how I was born. This is all normal. And they don't want to address the root problem. We've forgotten God. We've taken God out of our lives, and now it's all about me, I. And that is the problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to deviate a bit here. I've got a question that sort of came to me that's I guess specific toward this particular uh, uh, live stream, and that is, you know, there is a bit of a stigma among Christians if you listen to metal.
Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've come across it.
Yeah.
You know, Matt. I mean, Matt, I think like we have seen where we've had more support from secular artists than we even have the churches.
Hmm.
So that once again, we're getting into where we talk about how people are falling away. The churches, I think, so if I was a CCM artist, I think that like if we were CCM artists, I think we blow it away. Like we would get plenty of the well, what I mean by that is we would get plenty of support from the churches. But if you go to a church, like they want to fund the missionaries, they want to fund all these things, they want to have their little coffee time and reading the Bible, which is great. But when you talk about how we as a church are supposed to be out there trying to get the word out to people who don't want to walk in a church, they don't want to support that. So it's like,
Right.
well, they want to fill the pews, but they don't want to support where it really matters. And I think that if you talk to Mark or Olivia or Jason, they would say they would agree with me on that. Because it's hard. Like it's not easy being a Christian band. Like it's just not. Like I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think that the American church, well, I think church in general globally has lost its way. Like, and it's it's interesting you asked that because when we started the band, I said I don't want a worship band. If you want to watch a worship band, go to your local church.
Right.
And by the way, there's a church locally here. It's like the mega church. It's like Saddleback of LA. Like, and you walk in and it's a concert.
Yeah.
and they've got the coffee bar in the back, and they've got
Hmm.
all this. And I used to be very much supportive of kind of the more like, let's get into it, let's show energy. But the more I've been watching it, I'm like, that just detracts from
The real
the
purpose.
real
Yeah.
thing. Now, I went to that with my wife. I'm Catholic. I converted to Catholicism about 20 years ago. So I will go with her sometimes. But like I said, uh, people don't want to walk into it. The people that feel marginalized, the people that feel like they're not good enough to walk into a church, or maybe they even feel like that it's hypocrisy, but they still want to know Christ. We want to get out there. We'll play at a bar. We'll play at anywhere that we feel led that to to play and reach those people who don't feel comfortable going to a church.
That is, y'all are doing what we're called to do, and that's good stuff. And I mean, there is a lot of. I mean, obviously, there is a lot of dark, bad metal out there, but there's also a lot of really positive stuff. But it all gets lumped into one bucket by a lot of people.
Right.
A lot of people think metal is just inherently satanic, and it's not.
And I have some people in my family to kind of focus in more on your question. Yeah, I have some people in my family. Like one time I heard the question was, can you really do like ministry as a metal band? Like it's heavy metal and you're playing Christian music. And then when I tell them, go to Kingdom Come Festival and watch a band like Chaotic Resemblance. If you've never heard of them, you should listen to them. If you like 80s metal, they're kind of more of an 80s metal, but their lead singer, he's made to preach. Towards the end, he'll preach for like 20, 30 minutes. We saw 4 people walk up to the stage, give their life to Christ right there.
That's
Now, I don't
awesome.
care if you're Catholic. I don't care if you're Protestant. If you're going up and you're making a commitment to the Lord, that says something.
Yep.
That says something. And that's the Holy Spirit drawn in. So tell me, you're gonna sit here and tell me that heavy metal you can't minister to people? Well, I can prove you wrong. So I
Absolutely.
dismiss that. People say
Yeah.
that like whatever. Like come
Yeah.
see what I've seen.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Yeah.
So something else that I've done in every one of these is I have let the person being who is the current guest pose a question for the next person in the hot seat. So my previous guest was a guy named Bryant Perez, who
Mm,
is he's a both a hip hop and metal artist here
mhm.
in Metro Atlanta,
Yeah.
and he posed the question, what is your biggest achievement so far, and what is your next goal?
Boy. Once again, I'm gonna take it back. I mean, we're talking about the band. I feel like a big achievement for this band, even though we get down, which we do a lot about like not getting support from churches, right?
Right.
Or not getting not playing enough shows. It's very hard to get on shows. Believe it or not, the Christian music industry is just as hard to get as secular. Like there's still people out there that you kind of have to know them. It shouldn't be that way, but um, I think we've had somebody say to us, they messaged us on Facebook a couple of years ago, and she said, "I want you guys to know that we were listening to this song. I was listening to this song. I think it was more than what you are, maybe." And she said, "I am trying to get back into my Bible, and after I was listening to this, I've started reading my Bible more, and I want you to know that you guys have really kind of helped me like think more about God." Basically, it was thinking about more about God and getting the Holy Spirit plants seeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
you'll hear Mark say this a lot, and I'm always grateful when he says this, because when I'm down and complaining, he says, we're here to plant seeds.
Yep.
I think we as Christians fall into the sin of thinking we can do everything ourselves and not letting God take control. Well, he's much bigger than we are. So you plant the seed. And I think that would be an achievement. I don't want to say, well, my achievement was I'm a better bass player than I was 9 years ago. That's not what's important.
Right.
I want to say that when we hear that people are listening to our music and we hear that it's actually impacting them, that's the biggest achievement, because that's why we started the band. So even though you may only have so many listeners, or you only play 10 shows, and you think that no one is listening and it's impacting them based on your mission statement, which was to reach people for God, you find out that they are. That's your biggest achievement. Because I think what we've always said was, if we could reach one person, if when we die and we look and see that what our actions have done to people, and we start seeing it spider off, you don't know like how many people she's impacting now. And it's humbling. It's humbling to that. What was your second one? So the biggest achievement, and then what?
And what is your next goal?
I mean, our next goal is, for me, I want to see us play more shows and reach more people. Do I want to have popularity? Yeah, I do. Is it because I love to play shows? That's the main reason. It's not because look at me. But you sometimes wonder, like, is it after 8 or 9 years, is the Lord not putting more shows in your way because I need to work on, like, will I fall into pride? Will I fall into arrogance? Because you see a lot of people come up to you and they want to take pictures and all that stuff, and it's little stuff like that. It's not like we're a huge band. But are you susceptible as a musician to fall into arrogance and not be humble?
Right.
And who knows, right? Only you know that. And so I think the thing is get more shows and just continue to reach more people.
Absolutely. And since this is a series, do you have a question that you would like to ask the next person? And I can go ahead and say the next person is going to be a guy named Derek, who is basically the guy behind a music project in South Carolina called Ansira. So do you have a question you'd like to pose to Derek?
This was tough.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Alexa.
Yeah, that was Siri talking. I said Ansira, and it thought I said, hey,
that's
Siri.
Great. With me being in security, we should talk. I should tell you.
Yeah.
You should not have that in your house.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah. I don't really have. I mean, I would ask a question like that if I knew the person and had a thoughtful question. But I guess
that's fine.
Well, no, I got one. I got
okay.
one. If you could play another instrument, what would it be? Like one that you've never played before. What would be something that you've either you can't afford, or whatever? Like if you had a chance to play another instrument and get good at it, which one would it be?
That's a great question, actually.
Yeah.
So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I've found most of y'all's social media, and I've got it going on the ticker on the bottom of the screen. Is there any other social media presence that you'd like to hype, or any upcoming shows, or any stuff that you'd like to bring attention to?
Yeah, actually, definitely. So let me go to, and I can send you a private message if you want, or I can put it in chat right there. Tour. So this is our show list.
Okay.
Let me go to live. Bring this up. Messages from audiences will show here. I don't know if I can private chat. Okay. Oh, there's other guests. All right. So that's the link. That will take you to all of our shows that are coming up. Jason maintains our website, does a great job. So we have KCF this weekend. So this weekend we will be playing at 11:30 on Saturday on the main stage. That's in Greentown, Indiana, which is just outside of Kokomo. We'll be headlining the Ladoga Christian Fest in Ladoga Community Park, I believe it's going to be at. We'll be headlining that, and that's going to be at 7 o'clock. We'll be headlining at 7 o'clock, but there's like 10 bands that are going to be there, so it's going to start early. Where we started our first show is going to be at the Hoosier Dome, so we'll be back there. We started our first show like 2019 there. That's a little place in Indianapolis, and then you can see the rest. Actually we're gonna do like a little small mini weekend tour in Pennsylvania. So there's gonna be like 3 places we're gonna be playing there, and then of course Broken Bottle is in September. That's when it is, September 28th in Ohio, and there's all the bands that we've got listed there. They're all great. So yeah, that's kind of our schedule coming up. And then Facebook, you can find us, just search for Divine Martyr. Of course, our YouTube channel is official Divine Martyr. We're on Instagram. We don't have an X. We don't use X, Twitter.
Yeah.
And that's about it. We're considering TikTok, but I don't know. We got to figure out that. So.
Gotcha. Well, I went ahead and threw that link up in the ticker there. So
cool.
But anyway, for those of you that have been watching live, thank you. For those of you that'll see this in a replay later, thank you for that. If you like what we're doing here, please spread the word. And because this is definitely starting to get some traction, and it's exciting, and I've been doing this since late January, and I'm having a blast doing it. And
awesome.
I've met some of the coolest people. And you're definitely high on that list. So.
Thanks. Thank you. Tell my wife that, will you? My kids.
Well, I think they know. I mean, but anyway, so everybody have a wonderful rest of your night, and a great weekend coming up. We got Father's Day this weekend, so
yep.
And so we'll just go ahead and